Well, the results were expected from Zenith Bank. The gross earnings, they did remarkably well in the gross earnings category, making 199 billion naira in terms of gross earnings, which was a very good growth. Also, we saw their profit before tax growing by 5% to 46.7% or thereabout. And they also did make provisioning of 26.4 billion, which eventually led them to a profit after tax of 16.9 billion. The results were expected in line with the CBN and NDIC new guidelines. So, well, yeah, I think they did fairly well in terms of performance. Yeah.
Well, Damilola, what's the reason behind their growth there?
The growth. This year, there has been a lot of businesses, even despite the fact that oil and gas sector has been affected a lot by this, by the economic downturn, but also had a lot of businesses in Nigeria, and Zenith Bank is strongly tiered towards the corporate sector of the market. So there are still a lot of businesses they could support, and they did support a lot of all these businesses, and which was the reason for the growth they had in terms of gross earnings.
Talk to us about their loan provisions. Is that going to be cleaned out and a new slate's going to start, or how exactly are they going to tackle their loan provisions?
Well, I think these are interesting times for Nigerian banks in terms of loan provisioning, in terms of business. These loans have been provisioned for. So whatever, and these loans came from the oil and gas sector, loans to the oil and gas sector, also loans from margin loans, also loans from the stock market. So once those loans have been written off, and if the market does turn, maybe early next year, we can all write back these loans back into the books. But presently, right now, this is like a clean slate, so like an open book for banks to start operating, start doing this business once more. Retail markets, corporate lending also. So it's a fresh slate for most banks going from next year. And in line with the CBN, we have a uniform year end as of December. So all banks are going to really start from a clean state, start from ground zero. What businesses can we do? Are we going to be in retail banking? Are we going to be more into the corporate banking? Or are we, what business are we going to be doing? So that's what banks are going to be asking themselves. How can we, what will our clients be? What kinds of service are we going to give? So that's the questions banks are going to be asking themselves now. And it's going to be an interesting next year, 2010.
Well, looking at the crisis and the concerns within the banking sector in Nigeria, what's the outlook for Zenith Bank going forward?
Well, seems pretty good. Like I said earlier, they're very, very, very strong in terms of the corporate markets. The outlook generally will seem very favorable for them going into the years to come. Well, then you should know that Nigeria is a big market, and most banks, any bank who's doing the correct banking practices, should really succeed in Nigeria. So I think the outlook for Zenith Bank is quite favorable.
Do you think investors should be buying the stock?
At the price most of the stocks are presently, even with Zenith Bank, I think these are prices that are even lower than the share of the prices should be. So Zenith Bank is currently trading below what it should be trading. So these are very good prices to buy in at this point. So I think investors can, if they are, but on a long-term basis though, not on a short-term basis, investors can actually go into the stocks and buy, yeah.
All right, and just give us an outlook for the currency.
Oh, okay. At the CBN auction on Monday, demand was not met. Demand for dollars was not met by the CBN. There was a total of $250 million in demand, and I think around 200 million was met. So the naira depreciated a bit by like 35 kobo. But we see that this depreciation might stop going towards the end of the week because we're expecting inflows from oil companies, and so we see that this depression, the naira might stabilize towards the end of the week, going towards the end of the week.